Hello everyone, my name's the Fox. In this video we're going to be taking a look at Linux running on the GPD Max 6800U version. For the most part, everything works just fine. In the description field below, I'm going to go ahead and do list USB and list PCI, and I'll have that in the description field below just so you guys can see it, but we'll go ahead and run it right here as well. Alrighty, so now if we're taking a look at lsusb, we can see the fingerprint sensor here connected via USB. However, I've not been able to find any particular driver. If I do fprintd, if I try to enlist it or enroll it with anything, fprintd doesn't see it, unfortunately, so this most likely still needs some type of driver to be able to actually work. The other thing that we have here that is connected is this Microdia USB camera. Unfortunately, that's not working either. If we just try to open up a webcam app, you can see that it doesn't actually hook into anything. There is a disconnect between what camera is installed here and what driver to use. It might be using a pretty generic camera, so we could probably just fudge in whatever. I haven't taken a big look at this. I don't really think that this is a huge deal, but from a Linux standpoint, it's not going to, at least from my point of view, just work. The only things that don't just work are, so far, the camera and the fingerprint sensor. So the fingerprint sensor, again, is not working just yet. However, it does show up in lsusb, so we can see it. We're just going to need to get it working some way, somehow. Additionally, we are using Intel's AX210. I am a big fan of the AX200. The AX210 is no exception. Bluetooth just works here. All right, so here I am looking for my GameSir keyboard. So now if I just hit the spacebar button. So Bluetooth is working just fine. Most things just work and operate as you would expect them to. Alright, so here is the Wi-Fi part of Linux just working. You can see that I have extremely good latency to a server in New York. My up and down is really good because of what I'm connecting to. I have a Wi-Fi 5 router down in my garage, not a Wi-Fi 6. So I'm not even able to take full advantage of the AX210 in this particular chipset. However, it'll connect to Wi-Fi 5 just fine and get fantastic speeds. Additionally, we can see right here that this is just working.
From their Rembrandt platform, this is AMD 6800U.
Touchscreen is just working. Additionally, if I use any of the function keys here, I'll go function and pause, play. So the function keys for that work. If we use the function keys to lower the brightness, that works. If I boost the brightness all the way, that works. If I go ahead. So all of that is just working. Wi-Fi is working, display is working, the touchscreen is just working just fine. And just to show you that again, the touchscreen does just work. No calibration needed. What's nice is that the GPD WinMax 2 does have a landscape-based screen, so there is no need to rotate the screen after you're done installing anything. Everything just works. Additionally, the pen support works. So if we open up, I have Krita here. If we go ahead and just say yes, open up a new file here. Now if I put my palm down and start drawing, you can see that pen pressure does work. So lightness, super light, dark, heavy, pressing down heavy, and then light again. So pen pressure does work on Linux just fine. The only thing that I have not been able to find that doesn't work very well is the camera out of the box as well as the fingerprint reader. The Intel version, the fingerprint reader isn't connected via USB, so that is seen at all. But on the AMD versions, it is connected via USB, so there is at least some hope that it'll be a little bit easier to try and fiddle with whatever drivers we can to get fingerprint working. But the camera and the fingerprint are probably two things that we're going to have to try to get working. That is pretty much a quick look of everything that's working on the GPD Max via Linux right now. I forgot to do LSPCI for you guys. Also, I do have Rise and Adjust. Rise and Adjust just works. I can show you what that looks like in a moment. You can see the 680M is loaded right there. What's funny here is you can see the Van Gogh security chip is located right there. What else do we have? So that's pretty much it. Right now I am in the Ryzen build right now. So if I were to go ahead and just say, hey, run at 9 watt, I don't care if you guys see this password because it's a nonsense password. But you can see right there, successfully set to 9 watts. So right now the GPD Max 2 in Linux is running at 9 watts. Alright, so here is Batman Arkham Knight. I should have made Mango HUD a lot larger here. I apologize. I should have scaled that out as well as my other settings. If we go to options here and we go to graphics options, if we take a look at the graphics options, you can see I'm doing 1280 by 800, which is the same as the Steam Deck, as well as having high on all the other settings. This is exactly what settings I had on my prior benchmark with the 6800U versus the Steam Deck. Now we're going to be doing a 9 watt test here, which is what I just showed you guys. So the interesting thing to note here is that there are some BIOS changes that I did with this particular run that works in Windows now as well. If you were to recall my GPU tweaks that I was doing before to get better performance, there is a way to force in the BIOS using P-State 2. The machine was actually set to P-State 0, which is aggressive on CPU. By doing P-State 2, we're telling everything to be a little bit more energy efficient globally at all times. So when we do 9 watt, what we're getting here is marginally better than what I'm getting in Windows. More or less, if we take a look at my GPU tweaks, you can see that we were getting around 44 FPS. All right, so the run finished. Now we are again running at 9 watt TDP. You can see that we have a 48 FPS average. So more or less, we've finally gotten that parity of when we run Linux, we're using DXVK and Linux. Everything else is kind of similar. We're seeing similar performance to the Steam Deck at the same wattage, which is thankfully good. The one caveat here is that I am doing a change on the BIOS. I actually changed P-State 0 to P-State 2, which means that we are more aggressively looking to do power savings wherever we can get them, which is very beneficial on lower TDPs instead of just trying to gun the CPU more with doing like a P-State 0. If we were to think about that from an EPP standpoint on an Intel platform, basically it was set up before to be gunning more for the CPU, and now I have it strategically spend power better overall globally automatically. So that is why we got this particular score. So I'm going to go ahead and boost the power from 9 watt, and we're going to go back up to 20 watt. We'll run like God of War. Alright, so we've gone ahead and set this to 20 watt. Alright, so here is God of War running. Apologies that I don't have Mango HUD up and running here. Instead of trying to figure that out, I thought I'd just get this video out. But you can clearly see, like, if I just whip this camera around, you can see how smooth this is. Obviously, it runs very well. We're running at 20 watt TDP here. That is really the highest TDP that I would really recommend for the 6800U. Going above that is rather wasteful. There are major diminishing returns. If you're going to go higher than 20 watt, please try to run that while plugged in. Obviously, you can do whatever you please. But 20 watt TDP is a very good sweet spot insofar as that if you even push up TDP a little bit, you're not going to get very much benefit out of that. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other games as well, like Cyberpunk, which runs very well with Steam Proton. And just so we can see the controller is detected, you can see that it shows up as an Xbox 360 controller when in gamepad mode here. So if we were to kind of just test the analogs, you can see that we have full range motion here, which is very nice. And we've already taken a look at the Hall-based sensors in my previous videos, so those are all as they are, but you can clearly see that it just shows up as an Xbox 360 controller, and we saw that with lsusb as well, which again will be in the description field below. Alright, just so you can see, we are running the Steam Deck preset with medium textures. FSR 1 is set to auto. And if we go over to video, we can see 1280 by 800, so I'll go ahead and run the benchmark. Alright, so our average FPS is 46.92, which is basically the same. I was doing 18 watt on Windows. I was getting like 45. So with a little bump of extra power, we can see that we're getting a slight bump in performance. Again, 20 watt being the absolute sweet spot in terms of where you're actually going to see a performance improvement with how much power you're putting into the system. When we compare that to the Steam Deck, which again caps out at 15 watt, that'll get us about 37 FPS. But when we see that we get a significant increase in performance, now if you were to tweak settings a little bit, go to low settings instead of Steam Deck settings, then you can be able to push this to 60 FPS, or just have FSR2 replace DLSS and then get better performance that way. But that's the basic idea, is that performance is more or less in line with Windows and in line with what you would get from Steam Deck. Not that it's sensationally better, but everything is just working on Linux as it is. Again, the only thing that I haven't been able to get working is the webcam and the fingerprint sensor. Now, the one thing that on the Windows build of the GPD Win Max 2 that was really wonky was that if I were to put the machine to sleep, the keyboard basically stopped working. So I'm going to see if that happens again here. So fingers crossed, wish me luck. Let's see what happens. All right, the fan cut off. I'm going to give it a few more seconds to fully try to go to sleep here. All right, let's wake it up now. All right, there it is. Let's see if the keyboard works. Hey, keyboard's working. Nice. So that's a relief. Okay, great. So sleep worked just fine. We're going to have to go ahead and reconnect to the Wi-Fi here. But that's it. This is the GPD WinMax 2 running the 6800U. Most everything works. Again, the only thing that I haven't gotten to work was the webcam and the fingerprint sensor, but I suspect that the community might be able to take a look at it better than I would for a longer time and get everything running, those being the last two remaining components that I haven't been able to get working. So that's it. That's my look at Linux on the GPD WinMax 2. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.